But we kind of got all the moves today. Still ended up the day up 55 BPS, which is, not equivalent to what we lost yesterday. And still, range bound by those Greeks, right? Hard. It's really difficult to affect that bull push above Vega neutral. And that's largely why we collapsed there, right? The more puts they sell, the longer and longer the MM is those puts, right? And so that's why you got that velocity and that downside move, because the MM is long all those puts, right? And so when their puts start going in the money, they just dump that hedge. And it can pick up a lot of momentum. And we got that yesterday at open too, right? We tested VN, failed really hard, right? And that's gonna be a consistent thing that happens if prices drive up into these neutrals, and we don't, to really get them to move away from spot, we need to fall further, right? We need a failure of GN. So we can fall below GN, and then these will start moving up. The Gamma Max and the Vega Neutral, right? And the MM will be less and less long puts as the price goes down. And then, when it reverses, we can go up much higher without that drawdown, right? If the bulls keep trying to push this, you end up really range bound with, like, escalator up, elevator down kind of moves, as you keep running in to VN on those. And it's not the first time we've run into this scenario, so you guys should be more than familiar with it already, but it is where we're at now. So one of the reasons I think that we'll see a pullback is because, generally, due to all the choppiness, bulls tend to kind of back off a little bit when we get into this range. It's not very profitable for them to stay long, and their positions just start bleeding theta, which usually leads to them getting abandoned, and then that can trigger a correction. Moves a little bit more extreme out here on futures, and we probably will see a retest of 4640. At that point, we'll see if we maintain support on this lower trend here. If we lose that, we could drop lower, like 5610, 5585 ES. So we'll keep an eye on that. China's putting out a bunch of data Saturday night. I'm sure that'll have some impact on the dollar yen pair, or yuan pair. Probably the yen as well. Commodities up a little bit today, but not very much. Most of the flight out of tech seems to be into small caps and cash flows, and not into commodities yet. But usually after flight to small caps comes flight to commodities. Dollar down today, about 40%. Yields dropping almost to the intraday or yesterday's low, but not quite. So still up a little bit from yesterday. Correlation spiked really hard, and then they slammed it. They slammed it back down in order to catch the knife. But core closing out the week at all-time lows on the 1 month. But the 3 month is still kind of bleeding up over time, and so that's another reason that I think that there could be a correction. Is that they're losing control of the like the 90-day correlation, and that's starting to break apart. And the 1 month correlation can only do so much. When the spread between those gets blown out, zoom in here, it generally doesn't last long, right? And then you get, market corrections. And that may be a little easier to see out on, like, the 1 hour or something, where we see those spreads blow out, like here was the last time. And this is much wider, right? We tend to get, kind of corrective action immediately following as that spread collapses. The yield curve still inverting pretty rapidly, and we did get this drop in the forward yield of VIX, but this is because the contract in front rolled over on TradingView. So really, this should still be kind of up here, or well, like flat up here, right? Because that's what it did, traded flat. But yeah, that gap down is because the VIX contracts roll too soon on TradingView. I don't know why they do that, but they do. It fucks up a lot of different indicators. Move was shockingly down yesterday, despite the massive drop in yields. and maybe flat today. I don't think it moved very much. Skew, we picked up a little bit of tail risk yesterday, but not much. It still remains way over the long run average, right? It's still very high. So still not a lot of tail risk protection coming on, and we're seeing that in the vol short. 75% of the S&P now over its 20-day moving average. So that missing breadth is here. It's just not sufficient, right? And I think it may take us a little while, maybe next part of next week, to find out that breadth isn't going to hold all this up if tech continues to sell off. But we're not there yet. And we ended our now second week in a row with positive correlation between VIX cash and VIX futures contract in front, at 3.48% positive. Fed fund futures now pricing in 0.635 rate cuts, so almost 0.65. And this is into Jan of 2025. So over the next 5 months, we're projecting just a little over 2.5 rate cuts. Almost 3. Now this is a weaker close into the back half of the week, and I'll go over this Sunday night, but not weak enough, right? So going into next week, we're still going to carry a bullish bias, and the test at like 56, 67 should be on the table at some point next week, provided we don't fail 54.46 in the early part of the week. Now, we could fail 54.46 into the end of the week, and that would be super bearish. But I think something more like 70 or 25, 23 would be reasonable. And then if we do close the week below 70 or 23, then the following week, very good chance of getting below 54.46 or 53.75, or you can start to work your way down. GoEV is doing okay. It's getting some covering. It got a little bit of shorting into the end of the day, but not too much. And it's still holding above that 250 strike. I'd like to see it move a little higher and start to pressure the $3 strike, where there are a metric ton of sold calls. But it's steady, and that's good, right? So, that steady pressure is going to continue to encourage put sellers to pressure that market maker hedge down. And if we can get over the flip point in that hedge, which we actually did today a little bit, then, the market maker is going to start pricing those options more equivalently, then possibly starting to price up calls, which encourages short vol to buy to close, right? What's up, Girth? I made a bunch of money again this week. Nice, dude. You're the bestest, thickest centaur I know. I hope you have a great weekend and start feeling better soon. Cheers. Thank you so much, man. Referencing the weekend stream, a 200 bip down move could have CTA shedding and give us JFresh's crash. Well, it's not JFresh's crash anymore. He already missed that opportunity last week. I get the next crash prediction. I've probably perfectly timed it like everything else, right? Yeah, we'll see. When and if I choose to predict one. But yeah, had we moved down further yesterday, like say we'd lost 55.50, we could have seen CTAs selling very hard. It was one of the reasons we didn't. One of the reasons we snapped back today is to keep those CTAs net long. What about Beyond? So Beyond, I cut the calls going into next week. I don't like that Gamma Max is moving up on it, and it might get shorted down again before we get a move. I'm thinking maybe they shorted it too hard and accidentally got it on Reg Show. But like as part of the cycle goes, I feel like we're closer to this, right, than we are to this. I mean, I'm gonna be long either way because I have synth longs here, right? I really can't avoid. My contracts expire in like 2025, so there's not a lot I can do to get out of it at this point. Like I'm just gonna sit in it. But I cut the shorter dated shit for next week because it doesn't look great, and I also think IWM's a bit blown out, and if IWM sells off next week, especially if it sells off a lot, that'll be rough for Beyond. JFresh shot his load. Yeah, How is Cat preemptive? Yes. What's up, Squamps? I guess some of you guys are gonna ask about GME. It looks like garbage. It did close above 26, although I don't think that matters. There's just not a lot of interest on the call chain. Dealer Delta's been bleeding. It looks like it's mostly just trapped between 25 and 26 until that starts to expire. I can't wait to look back on when we all shorted the top together after OPEX and the market went straight up. It's gonna be awesome. Fubo looking at all interesting. Actually, it is. Yeah, Fubo's climbing on drying up liquidity, which is usually bullish, right? Especially given that, you know, usually when liquidity is drying up, the underlying is being shorted. So this means one of two things. One, someone's positioning long, right? And the MM is having to buy up Delta, which is driving illiquidity. Or two, someone's shorting the fuck out of it. I think we've got a little bit of both. And as we approach earnings, we should start to see volatility increase. I'm really not interested at this price, but if we get back to 150 or above 150, the amount of put selling at 150 could be very indicative of whether it runs or not. And it's been a good while since it's had a solid run. We do have a slightly higher high on the low here. If we go out on the weekly, we have a slightly higher high on the low. And I think good earnings, and maybe some news about the case would be fun to look at. Might prompt something. And anyway, I mean, on the weekly also, you know, liquidity's starting to expand, right? Which means that, you know, something's happening. I don't know what yet, but something. Oh yeah, I'm not that bearish on next week. Maybe the back half of next week, but the front half not super. Not after we got the drop today. If we'd stayed at like 56, so yeah, like here's how I kind of look at it. If we'd stayed up here into Monday, I probably would have assumed that we'd fall back to like 34 by Monday and then move up through Wednesday, retest the high, and then fail into the back half of the week. But with the failure today, I think Monday, maybe just like a little bit of downside, and then start recovering. And then that, I think, could drag out to like Wednesday. And then maybe we fail when like Thursday, Friday. Dark, you can front run Grick's position. No, he can't. He lost to JFresh this week. That's on Tesla. Kind of looks like shit. I don't know. I need to see how the zero DTs broke down on it. There were a lot of them. I need to see if shit rolled out or it stayed in place. I mean, from a technical look, this is terrible, right? But I would need to see the options chain. This obviously isn't moving on technicals. All right. So I'll see you guys all Sunday, 12:30 p.m. for the member stream. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope everyone made a bunch of money today. It was a good one. Or yesterday, which was also a good one. Or the day before that, which was also great. Any of those would be awesome. But I hope you did well, and I hope you guys have a great weekend. I'll see you Sunday. Later.